the input of students, parents, staff members, and community members. The board's regularly scheduled meetings provide an opportunity for opinions and concerns to be expressed publicly. The board values all comments and will respectfully consider this input in decision-making. The board requests that individuals limit their comment on each item to 3 minutes. Following any comment, an individual board member may respond on the issue raised. However, it is not the intention of the public comment portion of the agenda for the board to enter into a debate with members of the community. Because non-agenda items are not publicly posted in advance, no action will be taken on public comment regarding non-agenda items this evening. If there's anyone present who would like to make a comment at this time, please approach the microphone and state your name and address prior to making your comment. Seeing none, we will move forward with the approval of the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda which board members would like to remove for separate discussion or action? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion, board members? Is there any community comment on the consent agenda prior to our taking a vote? Seeing none, Mrs. Galante, would you call the roll?
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Mrs. Neufeld?
Yes.
Mrs. Randall? Yes. Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Mrs. C.
Yes. We move down to recognitions, and our first recognition this evening will be actually presented by Mr. Dan Fleming, who represents the Prudential Insurance Company. He will be presenting an award to East High School senior Kyle Mansky, and that is the Presidential Spirit of Community Award. Mr. Fleming and Mr. Mansky, come to the front. Whichever way you'd like to.
Well, it's
It's all right.
Okay. Well, I think everybody can hear us, right? It's a great pleasure for me to be here today. This is a very special presentation. My company, Prudential, in partnership with the National Association of Secondary School Principals, partners a nationwide program honoring young students who care about their world and do a lot, do things to actively improve it. We do this because we believe that if we're going to meet many challenges we face today, we're all going to have to get more involved in making our communities a better place to live. One of the most important things we can do, in addition to being active volunteers ourselves, is to promote our young children to get involved in the community. Identifying and honoring young role models like Kyle is a key part to the mission to doing that. There are thousands of kids across the country that were considered for this award, and two children from each state, including the District of Columbia, were selected for special recognition. One middle school student, one high school student. Here in Wisconsin, we're delighted to present the award to Kyle Mansky. Kyle was singled out for an extraordinary achievement, and it wasn't in academics or sports or the arts, but in service to his community. Kyle, read what he basically involved with here. Kyle is a senior at Wauwatosa East High School, and he collected more than 7,000 new and used books for Children's Hospital of Wisconsin. Kyle received intensive speech and language therapy at the hospital for 6 years, and was disappointed to find that the book carts in the outpatient clinics were often depleted. Kyle basically said, Children's Hospital of Wisconsin helped me overcome many obstacles. I wanted to help other children in similar situations. With the goal of collecting 1,000 books for the hospital, Kyle set up collection boxes at 3 Milwaukee area churches and spoke during 5 church services. He also got permission to set up collection boxes at a local school, and recruited more than 50 volunteers to distribute red plastic bags to collect to more than 800 homes in the area, and arranged a week later to pick up all those bags. He ended up delivering more than 7,000 books to Children's Hospital. Kyle, your commitment and achievement represents the highest ideals of service to one's community. We're extremely proud of you, and we salute you as a 2010 Prudential Spirit of Community State honoree. We want you to come to Washington, D.C. at the beginning of May, along with all the other state honorees, for 4 days of special events so that we can further honor your accomplishments, all expenses paid. There you will receive a $1,000 award and be considered for one of 10 national awards. In addition, I would like to present you now with the engraved credential silver medallion.
Oh my gosh.
On behalf of Prudential and everybody involved in the Prudential Student Community Awards, I congratulate you. Very special honor.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations to Kyle, and thank you again, Mr. Fleming, for coming here tonight. I'm sorry, Mr. Fleming, if you have an unable task of following that up.
Considering the type of students we have in Wauwatosa, that's an easy task to fill. Wauwatosa students took part in the annual Wauwatosa Spelling Bee at Longfellow Middle School. Finalists from the Wauwatosa School District that will be representing Wauwatosa at the Regional Spelling Bee are two-time champion and state competitor Hannah Dion Kirshner, Longfellow Middle School, first place; Alonzo Garza, Longfellow Middle School, second place; Mark Salomon, Whitman Middle School, third place; Augie Schmitz, Washington Elementary, fourth place; and Jackson Stupi, Underwood Elementary, sixth place. Underwood Elementary is a finalist in the 2009-2010 Time Warner Cable Hang Tough Video Contest. Underwood Elementary students Michaela Quinn, Dorshea Shaw, Lee Carrolls, Carolyn Morris, Jesse Lawrence, and Tamara Townsend created the script Take Action, Be Assertive that has been chosen as a finalist. This year, 20 scripts were chosen as finalists. Over 2,000 students from 70 public, private, and parochial schools submitted more than 600 entries. Celebrating its 17th season, the Time Warner Cable Hang Tough Video Contest has enabled thousands of students to fight back against drug abuse and violence. Students encourage their peers to hang tough and are drug and violence free. Each finalist school's 30-second public service announcement will be produced with the guidance of a Time Warner Cable producer-director and will be cablecast 20 times a day on over 20 cable networks. All of the finalists and their classmates will be invited to attend the Time Warner Cable Hang Tough Video Contest Awards premiere in April at Milwaukee Area Technical College's Cooley Auditorium to announce the winners of this year's contest.
Students from East and West High Schools have won several scholastic art and writing regional awards for 2009-10. The awards recognize student achievement in the visual arts and creative writing. This year, the Alliance and its 81 regional affiliates will review more than 100,000 submissions of art and writing by creative students in grades 7 to 12 from across the country. Gold Key winners from East for individual works of art in the drawing category include Angelica Hibler, Jr., sophomores Ann Michna Maxwell Smith, Becky Eiling, and Maggie Elliott, and Megan Murphy, freshman. In the photography category, the winners from East include Jamie Knaus, Jr., Aaron Gosh, Senior, and Aaron Zarnicki, sophomore. In the mixed media category, Gold Key winners were seniors Madeline Peckinpah, Calvin Robb, and Lilia Van Rubby. Seniors Sean Miller earned a Gold Key in the architecture category. Gold Key portfolio winners from East were seniors Emily Blazer, Stephen St. Charles, Bonnie Watson, Sam Falcon, Aaron Gosh, and Philip Hoffman. Silver Key award winners from East High School are Emily Helmers, Jr., in the drawing category, junior Samantha Lonergan, and seniors Monica Alf and Joey Mulkey in the photography category, and senior Emily Blazer in the design category. Gold Key winners from West High School for individual works of art include Lori Blanca, Senior, and Emma Jushka, Jr. in the fashion category. Gold Key winners in the drawing category include sophomore Megan Canfield, junior Monica Wojniak, and freshman Kelsey Kennedy and Jennifer Lohr. Other Gold Key winners include Lauren Dumke, senior, in sculpture, seniors Allison Port and Jaleesa West in photography, Carol Latour, senior, digital art, and sophomore Catherine Bergman in jewelry. LeBlanca, Dumpke, and Port were also senior portfolio gold key winners. West freshman Jordan Lennis was a silver key winner in the drawing category. Gold key winners from Longfellow Middle School were 8th graders McKenna Kowalski and Rachel Ritchie in the drawing category, and Bryant Kimball Biersack in the digital art category. 7th grader Katie Drakulik was also a gold key winner in the drawing category. 8th graders Olivia Lucato, mixed media, Madeline Cox, drawing, Molly McGee, digital art, and Wes Zabrowski, digital art, were silver key winners. At Whitman Middle School, 7th graders Haley Strom and Zoe Yannikopoulos both won gold keys for drawing. 8th grader Rachel Tully was named a gold key winner in the printmaking category. The work of these Wauwatosa students was among the select 347 outstanding works by Wisconsin students from 87 schools. The winning artwork will be on display at the Milwaukee Art Museum through March 21st. Gold Key Awards are given to students whose work demonstrates the highest levels of originality, technique, and personal vision. Gold Key artwork is forwarded to New York for national adjudication. Students are recognized with Gold Key lapel pins and certificates. Silver Key Awards are given to students whose work demonstrates achievement worthy of recognition on the regional level. Students are recognized with Silver Key lapel pins and certificates.
For seniors from East High School, Nathan Dessinger, Ezra Olson, Kevin Peck, and Margaret Reed have been named National Merit Scholarship finalists, and senior Adam Vaishnav from West High School has been named a National Achievement Scholarship finalist. The selection of some 8,200 National Merit Scholarship winners from the group of finalists is now in progress. In March, scholarship winners will be notified. The National Merit Scholarship Program is an academic competition for recognition and scholarships that began in 1955. The National Achievement Scholarship Program was started in 1964 to recognize outstanding achievement among Black American high school students. Approximately 700 scholarships valued at $2,500 each will be awarded this spring. West High School academic decathlon coach Tom Woodworth will be honored by the Wisconsin Academic Decathlon for his 25 years of service to the school's program. Wisconsin Academic Decathlon annually formally recognizes coaches for their longevity of service to the program. Woodworth, a mathematics teacher at West High School, will be honored at the 27th Annual Wisconsin Academic Decathlon Banquet and Awards Dinner on March 12th in Wisconsin Dells. Wisconsin Academic Decathlon is a statewide scholastic competition for high school students from both the public and private schools throughout the state. This unique educational opportunity is for A, B, and C level students, not just the elite student. The program provides opportunities for students to experience the challenges of rigorous team and individual competition. It is designed to develop a greater respect for knowledge, promote inter-school academic competition, emphasize the need for increased communication skills, and stimulate intellectual growth and achievement and development of team efforts.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mills. And I feel compelled to say this is quite a list of accomplishments that we're recognizing here this meeting. And I think it's important to note that it covers the academic realm, the arts, and community service. And I think that speaks volumes about the students in this district and the staff who work with them on a daily basis. And congratulations to each of these individuals. Not quite sure what else to say. So it's fantastic. I have to say that the next portion of our meeting, which is presentations, sort of continues on this vein, because the next group before us tonight is the West High School We the People team. At the January 23rd school board meeting, the West High School We the People Citizen in the Constitution team was recognized for winning its third consecutive state championship. The team will move on to compete at nationals in Washington, D.C. in April. West team is made up of students enrolled in the school's American Public Policy Special Emphasis class. The team advisor is Social Studies teacher Chad Matesky. The We the People program prepares students for state and national level events with a challenging social studies and history curriculum. They're here tonight to show what We the People program is about. So congratulations to all of you again. And we're going to vacate here so that you can take over again. We'll be in the audience.
Someone will follow up.
I turned over the Roman Republic course that I did way back in December, so.
Yeah.
Feel free to, at some point, I'm going to open up the opportunity for anybody to ask questions. So feel free to fire away at these guys. Good luck with their where should I stay? Face everybody. First of all, thank you very much for inviting us to be here this evening. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Chad Mateski, social studies teacher at Wauwatosa West High School. This is going to be one of our groups from our We the People class. We the People is a national curriculum, as stated, that really forces the kids and asks the kids to take an in-depth look at the Constitution. And we've been fortunate enough for the last 3 years to be able to represent the state of Wisconsin in the national competition. It's been a lot of work the last 3 years. It kind of gets easier year after year. It kind of doesn't because the questions aren't always the same. So we all have to be on our game. And tonight we brought with us Unit 2. Unit 2's focus happens to be colonial period, constitutional convention, Revolutionary War era type of approach to the things that they really tend to focus on. We do have 6 groups in all. They're called units. And each unit has a different focus. That breaks down the We the People curriculum textbook. And so, like I said, tonight you're going to see Unit 2. They're going to do a question that involves the executive and the powers of an executive. And so hopefully that gives you a little precursor and you guys can think of some potential questions. What will happen here is they're going to present a 4-minute presentation that they have prepared in advance. All 6 groups will do that. In fact, each group, each unit has 3 separate types of questions that they are responsible for researching, creating a 4-minute statement because it's a timed event. They cannot be over 4 minutes or they will be docked points. And in this type of competition, you don't lose points for being over time. So they're going to deliver their 4-minute presentation. Then they're going to open up the opportunity for what we call follow-up. And I'll get the ball rolling so that you can get a feel for kind of how it works. It's a chance for the kids to prove they know what they're talking about. It's a chance for them to go beyond their statement that they've had several months to prepare for. And so, like I said, I'll ask the first couple questions, and then so you know it's not a canned performance, I'm going to open up the floor to everybody. So Jan, be ready. All right. Other than that, we are in the process of getting all the groups ready. They've taken a trip to Marquette Law Library at some point. We checked out, I didn't know that they had as many books as we checked out. They're ready to go, so between that and our fundraising efforts, we're keeping the kids busy. So I would also like to thank the school district for contribution that was mentioned earlier last week. So we thank you very much, and I know the kids are excited about that. So thank you. Here is the question. Yes, introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Kyle Hannes, and I'm a junior at Wauwatosa West.
I'm Alec Cards, and I'm also a junior at Wauwatosa West.
My name is Emily Hoffman, I'm a junior at Wauwatosa West. My name is Julie Robles, and I'm a junior at Tosa West.
I'm Jimmy Crawlin, I'm also a junior at Tosa West.
It's a junior class.
All right. Today we're going to focus on question number 2. The Office of the President of the United States was a new office invented at the Philadelphia Convention. What was new about it, and why did the delegates think such a new office was needed? Evaluate the arguments advanced for a single executive and those for a plural executive. How did the delegates try to achieve a balance between an energetic executive and limited government? When you are ready, you may begin.
Alexander Hamilton stated in Federalist 70, "A feeble executive implies a feeble execution of government." At the Philadelphia Convention, the delegates established a strong yet controversial executive power.
From King George III to long parades of royal governors, the delegates came to the convention carrying deep scars of executive authority. Some argued that the executive should be an errand boy for the Congress due to their faith in the legislative branch, which is considered a safeguard against executive tyranny. Even anti-federalist George Masons argued that a weak executive would leave the legislature unchecked and therefore dangerous. A balance of powers became focused at the convention. In order to achieve this, the delegates had to completely stray away from the Articles of Confederation and transform the ideas seen in state constitutions to create a new office at the national level. Every detail on how to compose this executive was carefully debated.
A component of this debate was the number of executives. A plural executive was precedent in many states and therefore more familiar to the people, and more likely to be supported. Albert Gary proposed a triumvirate, representing 3 different regions of the country. As stated in Federalist 51, ambition must be made to counter ambition, and thus a multiple executive would check one another.
Yet a plural executive, as argued in Federalist 70, would impede or frustrate the most important measures of government in the most critical emergencies of state. Therefore, the final decision was to create a single executive. This executive would have the ability to make quick actions and decisions with the independence to react to situations such as those seen in Shays' Rebellion. Also, a single executive would be easier to monitor. He would be a clear representative and figurehead of the nation in foreign affairs. This was a problem under the Articles of Confederation, since Congress lacked an authoritative presence in the international community.
The executive needed to be limited in his actions, yet at the same time be energetic enough to balance out the deliberative body of the legislative branch. In order to achieve this balance, they had to create a relatively independent executive compared to the state constitutions and the English monarch, while maintaining a system of checks and balances. It was decided, after much debate, that the executive should be chosen not by the legislature, but by the people. The concept of the Electoral College, though seen in Maryland to elect senators, was newly applied to the national executive. John Dickinson stressed the importance of the people's involvement in choosing the executive, since they would be more likely to support the president that is a man of the people. This approach, along with fixing the salary of the president, will allow him to act independently of Congress.
The convention established a 4-year term with the possibility of re-election, allowing for the people to check his actions while also giving him time to establish himself. This differed from many state constitutions which held annual elections. It was also decided that the president should be commander-in-chief, which would enable him to act without delay during times of war. However, these powers were restrained since delegates knew the consequences of the British king, whose military powers went unchecked.
Congress's checks on the president were found in nearly all components of his powers specified in the Constitution. Even impeachment and conviction were left to the legislature. The president was only given a qualified veto compared to the king, who had an absolute veto, or with the Council of Revision, as seen in the Constitution of New York and proposed in the Virginia Plan. Though the president needed energy provided by his many powers and independence, he was intimately checked by Congress to keep him from becoming arbitrary. The rule of law also allows the judiciary to check the president's actions, as seen in the United States v. Nixon.
The framers created a new branch of government, not even mentioned in the Articles of Confederation, but found in many state constitutions. The president was a new invention that was intended to be, as Charles Pinckney stated, a vigorous executive, but with limitations, to avoid a monarchy of the worst kind, an elected one. We are done. We're ready for your questions.
Well, we'll see about that. All right. Question number 1. What is your impression of the Founding Fathers and their view of executive power? And could you give examples? I know you had some in your statement. Could you go beyond that? The impressions the Founding Fathers had about executives.
Well, during the Constitutional Convention, Edmund Randolph argued in the debating between having a plural executive or a single executive, and Edmund Randolph claimed that a plural executive would be just a fetus of monarchy, and James Wilson countered that by saying that it would not be a fetus of monarchy, but the best safeguard against executive tyranny. So that was one of their...
Even before the Constitutional Convention, there was obviously some controversy of how much power the executive should have because they had just gone through dealing with the King of England. And their complaints and grievances were shown in the Declaration of Independence of showing where they believed the king had overstepped his power and where the government had overruled them and where they felt their rights were impeded against. And so they really wanted to create a strong executive, but one that wouldn't be tyrannical.
Yeah, the British king was a big reason why they didn't put an executive in the Articles of Confederation. And although they felt the need for an executive in the Constitution, they still had many fears about it, and that's why they debated about like plural and single and length of terms, was especially when the Anti-Federalist period.
In between these two periods, one could look at the period during the Articles of Confederation, where at the different state levels there were many different types of executive, where it be a very strong executive at the state level or a very weak one. So the framers of the Constitution had these examples to look to when they were deciding on how much power to give the president.
One aspect in state constitutions was an executive council, and which they believe would be able to check the president, but also leave that power into the executive branch, as mentioned in the Pennsylvania Minority Report, Anti-Federalist paper. And it was just one of those kind of things where they wanted separations of power, where the executive would be able to check itself with its power by having it sort of a plural executive, just that extra check and balance, but without having the Senate, which we have today, reaching into the executive branch.
Reaching into the executive branch. Is it good or bad that the Senate has the ability to reach into the executive branch, in your opinion? Why or why not? And are there any dangers? I don't know.
Well, it is both a positive and a negative that the legislative branch and the executive branch rely upon each other, because you need both of them to be connected to kind of check each other and make sure one isn't overstepping the bounds of the other. And if they're too separated, they kind of wouldn't be able to go ahead without each other, and that would create a gridlock.
Yes, there's definitely, I believe that the Senate is a necessary check on the executive because the Senate, from when it was created, was more this sort of organized, well-educated group of people, but who were still representing the people in the states, which they believed they wanted their voices heard through that. And the controversy I see is that the House of Representatives isn't given as many checks on the executive because they do represent the people more, which I think should also have as equal a check on the executive as the Senate. So Congress as a whole should check the executive.
I also agree that it is very important to have the Senate check the executive because, like, the Senate, approve many of the appointments that the president makes for, like, Supreme Court judges, and, like, if the Senate didn't have that power, then presidents, like, could just reinstate the whole Supreme Court. And, like, an example of this was when FDR, under his court packing during the New Deal time, wanted basically to add, like, to have 13 Supreme Court judges so that the New Deal legislation could be passed.
Okay. I asked a question about, at the time, the Founding Fathers' impression, so my question then, I'll fast forward it to modern day times. If the Founding Fathers intended for the legislature to be the most powerful branch, do you feel that that vision has played out over time? Why or why not?
I actually think that the judicial branch has grown in massive power over time through judicial review, and that ability to declare what is constitutional and what is unconstitutional, and the ability to interpret the Constitution fully, which, though the other branches slightly have that power, they have the final say.
I think that all three branches of the government have expanded in power, especially executive. Like you can see in Clinton v. New York, where Clinton, it's the line item veto, and Clinton would just like cross out lines of legislation that he did not like. And you can also see with like Race to the Top and No Child Left Behind funding, which is the president wants to push through education, which was usually left up to the states.
Are there other questions from the group? Because I've got more, but I'd like to let them have fun.
Very impressed.
Yes. Go ahead.
Sorry if I just stay here. First off, you talked a little bit about the original idea of, or the idea of the executive being elected every year, and they rejected that idea. Was there a discussion, or what was the discussion, if any, about term limitations at the time of the establishment of this country?
Yes, there was in many state constitutions an annual election, but when it came to the convention, they saw that as sort of one of those kind of things where, yes, that may be okay for states at a state level, but at a federal level, he's competing with things like the legislature and all these things. And in Federalist 70, they talk about how term limits need to be long enough, where the president is able to take the action necessary for the public's safety and for the public's good, when the legislature might be just doing what they need to do to be reelected. And so they're safe, the president is thus safe from temporary delusions of what the public feels is necessary.
And also you have to keep in mind that at the time when they're forming the Constitution, basically the people at the convention basically knew that George Washington would most likely be the candidate for the executive branch, and they gave him lots of powers and not a lot of limits on terms, with the fact that he would be most likely the first president elected. And one of the anti-federalist fears was that once he is out of office, what if you have President Slushington, as they said, and what would he do without those term limits?
And at the convention, it was originally debated that the presidential term would be 7 years without the possibility of re-election, and that was further negotiated down to the four terms that we have, or the 4 years that we have now, with the possibility of re-election. However, there was no limit on the amount of terms the president could set, and George Washington actually set somewhat of a precedent for the two-term presidency, but then as seen when FDR was in office for multiple terms, and that was the creation of the amendment.
Yeah, the 22nd Amendment was maybe a result of seeing, yes, FDR did need to be in office for maybe those 4 terms because of the war, because of the Depression, but maybe not such a great president will want to take advantage and be in there for multiple terms, and we don't want that. We don't want somebody with that much, we don't want another king. And so they did install the 22nd Amendment.
And it's 2 terms, many argued, because the first term is so that the president can establish himself, and then the possibility of re-election opens up the opportunity for him to take the people's views and represent the people like he should be. But the second term, without the possibility of re-election, allows him to do what he feels is necessary for the country's well-being.
Other questions?
What are the different levels of veto powers that have existed for the executive, and can you talk about anything that caused that to change over time?
Well, like I said earlier, the line item veto is like one of the earlier vetoes. Like he would say, the president would get a piece of legislation that he's going to sign, but like he might see something that he doesn't like, so he just crosses it out, and he like says, he still can sign the legislation, but he won't like enforce the certain parts where he crosses out. It's ruled unconstitutional in Clinton v. New York.
And there are also signing statements where he may only sign by a certain piece of legislation, again, deciding what he will enforce and what he won't. And that's one of the big power of the president.
Another type of veto would be the pocket veto, where the president would refuse to sign the piece of legislation and leave it on his desk, and then after 10 days it would be put into action even without his signing of the legislation, which would basically show that even though it was going to be passed into law, he did not necessarily support it.
And also with a local example, several years ago, Governor Jim Doyle exercised what is now called the Frankenstein veto, where he would take the legislation and actually just draw lines until he got certain letters, so he ended up transferring like a ton of money from one organization to another just by doing that, and that was also ruled unconstitutional.
Great job, by the way, on current events. Fantastic.
You mentioned the Electoral College and how that helps to elect the executive. Do you expand on that in your argument?
The Electoral College was originally made because, yes, they sort of wanted the people's views and everything, but they didn't want to give them too much power because they wanted the people's views in there, but they didn't necessarily trust them. And as stated in Federalist 68, they wanted to make sure that each state didn't just elect their favorite sons, and that they wanted a variety of people to be elected that represented the nation, not just the states. And it's said that today that the Electoral College is what keeps our two-party system, which allows for each person to be able to have two clear candidates, which they know a lot about, which they have platforms, and they're able to become more familiar with the candidates.
And also, like back then, people were like, information didn't travel as easily, so like the citizens weren't as well informed as they could be today. And so like the larger states like Virginia could just keep on, because they had a larger population, could just keep on electing the same person over and over again.
You talked about part of the original debate was whether you were going to have one executive or multiple executives. We ended up with a president and a vice president. Is the vice president office a constitutional office? And what role or activities, if any, did the original framers have in mind for the vice president?
When the position of the vice president was initially kind of formed, it was almost a joke in that people saw it as a political dead end, and that really there was nothing you could really do when you got there. It was kind of, you got there and you just kind of sat there. You didn't really do much power-wise. You didn't have a lot of political sway in any way, shape, or form.
And you look at the first vice presidents were the second place people. They were the people who were like competing against the person who became president. And so they were obviously opposing views, and so that was really hard that they couldn't really work together. Versus today, they're the same political party, they run together. And actually I see the vice president having more input before the election, where people look at who their vice president is and what their views are, and sort of it's more important like who's going to be the vice president than what they do after they become the vice president.
Yeah, I think it's not unconstitutional or anything, because it's not, the Constitution doesn't really delegate many powers to the vice president. It's mostly focused on the president as the head of the executive, and the vice president is just sort of there.
What, if any, powers does the vice president have extended to them originally?
He is the president of the Senate. Yes, the president of the Senate. And that also means that if there is a tie, he has the casting vote to break that tie. So he's obviously, if he's in the same political party as the president, he's the final vote of saying we're going to go with pretty much what the president wants.
Okay. Any questions?
I know you've had too many questions, but I'm looking for guidance on an issue, and this is really interesting. During the last year, the Senate has been criticized for not merely being a deliberative body, but being completely obstructionist. And it can do that because the filibuster rule, where the minority party can ask for 60 votes for a bill to be passed. Do you think the filibuster rule is consistent with the original view of the role of the Senate, or do you think it should be repealed so that a simple majority vote will allow legislation to go through?
Well, personally, I think that the filibuster is something that just hinders legislation and hinders the whole process of the American government system, and it just completely diminishes everything that was worked for and everything that was drafted during the actual constitutional convention.
And when the framers created the Constitution, they wanted some sort of gridlock so that legislation and laws wouldn't just be flying through and bad laws would get just swept through extremely fast. And so they wanted a little bit of gridlock to slow everything down and get it more processed and debated about before it got out there. And so you could kind of see filibustering, the current day filibustering as an example of this gridlock taken to an extreme where nothing can actually get done.
Any other questions? I have one last question. I want to see how controversial we can get. Is it ever necessary for a leader, an executive, to violate the Constitution in order to preserve it?
Yes, I do believe it is. For example, Abraham Lincoln, during the Civil War, suspended a writ of habeas corpus and also did many other things that were deemed unconstitutional, but if he had not done those, the Union would have failed and we might not even be a country today. And also, Thomas Jefferson wasn't even sure if he could go through with the Louisiana Purchase under the Constitution, but he did so anyway, which dramatically increased the size of our country.
Then again, on the other side of that is that if you say, well, the president can take unconstitutional action when he deems it necessary, that sort of creates this slippery slope of, well, what do you think is a proper situation when that is necessary? I mean, these presidents, maybe it was necessary, but if you open that door, you know, where are you going to draw the line? And so I think the president should have to act always constitutionally, and that's why we have the judicial branch, is to check him and to say, are presidential or executive actions following the Constitution, which was created by the founders for a reason, to have our government work properly.
I think an example of this is with FDR with Executive Order 9066 interned Japanese Americans after Pearl Harbor. This was unconstitutional, just putting a race of people into internment camps without any due process or anything. And it's like the judicial branch ruled it unconstitutional in Korematsu v. U.S.
They actually deemed it constitutional in Korematsu v. U.S., which shows that the judicial branch was doing its job, saying this is a necessary situation, and it does follow the Constitution.
And just because the judicial branch makes a ruling does not mean the president has to follow that ruling. The judicial branch does not have any power to enforce the ruling that they make. And this can be seen when Andrew Jackson, in the case of Wauwatosa v. Georgia, decided to go on with the Trail of Tears even though the Supreme Court had deemed it unconstitutional.
Well, I'm done. I'm done, other than the fact I'm bothered by you always referring to a president as he. Will there be a she? Okay. Well, then that is our presentation. Thank you.
You mentioned fundraising. Would you like to take a moment to explain what that's about and what opportunities there might be?
We are we're in the middle of we're actually over the halfway point right now in our fundraising efforts to ensure that there's not a financial burden on any of the 30 families that are involved with the students in the class this year. We have to raise about $47,000 to cover the 5+ days that we're out there. That covers everything. I mean, the kids won't have to pay a penny out of pocket, and that's what kind of factored into that total amount. And so we actually just had an extremely successful brunch yesterday, raised $2,300 at O'Sullivan's. They've been great, and we definitely appreciate the efforts that they put forward for us. We have a wine tasting coming up at Vino 100. I believe it's March 14th, Sunday from 2 to 6 in the village. So that will be an event that people can come to myself. Tickets if they want to at West, and they're $25 tickets. You get the chance to taste 6 different wines for that $25 ticket. The group will make a certain amount off of each ticket sold, as well as 10% of anything purchased that day. So if anybody's interested in getting ready to gear up for a wine for the holidays next year, March 14th seems like a great day to me. I don't know if you guys would. We also have a letter drive going on, which has been our biggest boost every single year. And so contributions, donations could be sent to our school at Wauwatosa West, care of Candace Miller. And we can offer tax receipt opportunities for people if they would wish. And we'll also send you a nice little thank you letter and let you know how we finished. Because our goal this year is top 10. And I think that they really can do it. Last year the kids finished 15th in the country. And 2 of the kids in our class this year are my teaching assistants from last year's groups, and they had to stop themselves at state several times and remind themselves, holy cow, we're watching this group prepare and go for the first time at state. And they said, they reminded of us at nationals several of the times when they were hearing the kids talk, and we got 2 more months to prepare, and that was back in January. So I really think they have a chance to be in the top 10, and that would allow them to compete on the final day on Monday up on Capitol Hill in the Senate hearing rooms, which would be historically phenomenal for the kids to be able to do that. You hear what they're capable of, so thank you.
Thank you all again for coming. Congratulations. We have another presentation this evening. Longfellow Council host Jason Galen and Library Media Specialist Kate Dabrowski will present the Longfellow video created by Take a look.
Thank you, and good evening, members of the school board. We have a special presentation today. I wanted to talk a little bit about the setup and how maybe we arrived at the video, show the video, and then have Mrs. Dombrowski kind of go into some of the detail. Last year, we changed the focus and intensified the focus of the 5th grade orientation night, formerly known or commonly known as the 5th grade registration night. We changed it into more of a recruitment night. Some of the families that arrived last year had not made up their mind on which middle school they wanted to attend, so we wanted to make sure that we focused our efforts and offered opportunities for the families to see extracurricular activities, some of the allied arts classes, and also sit in a question and answer session with a guidance counselor and a 6th grade teacher. What we found as we rotated the groups, we broke them up in sessions, was that the same questions kept coming up in each Q&A session. So I don't know whose idea it was, but I guess it doesn't really matter. We said, why don't we streamline that and then just have a video that kind of answers all of those basic questions. And I said, what do you think, Kate? And she said, oh, yeah, we can get that done. And I honestly forgot about it. And then all of a sudden, Kate said, hey, we're still working on that video. So we're very proud of the final product. It received rave reviews this year at our 5th grade orientation night. And so would you like to talk now or after?
I'll wait till...
Okay, because there's a lot of hard work that went into that. And it's not only extremely informational, but also quite entertaining. So
You want me to turn it on?
We'll roll it.
One more time.
Welcome to Longfellow Middle School, your middle school. Come in.
Wasn't the X.
Welcome to Longfellow Middle School, your middle school. Come in and spend a few minutes with some of our students who at one time were as new to these rooms and halls as you are right now. Hopefully, they will help to put you at ease in these new surroundings and make you feel a part of Longfellow.
Welcome to Longfellow! Thanks for taking the time to let us show you around your new school. We won't be showing you every room and hallway. Instead, we'd like to point out just a few places where you'll be spending your time and give you a little information about some things that will be important for you to know. And maybe answer some of the questions. Or head up some of the fears that you may be having about how we do things here at Longfellow. So while you stay comfortably in your chairs, let us take you on a personal, highlighted tour of our building. Complete with the voices of us. Charlie, Mary, Ben, Tux, Liz, Grace, Camille, Madeline, and Sam. Your one-year experience guides to all things Longfellow. Come on, We begin in the main office. The principal, assistant principal, and administrative assistants all have offices and desks in this area. It is a very busy place all day, but particularly first thing in the morning and right after school. This is where all visitors report when entering our school. It's also where you need to report if you enter Longfellow any time after the school day begins. Go call to the main office if you feel ill and want to call home. It's where you'll wait to be picked up for appointments or pick up your lunch, homework, or PE clothes if you've forgotten them and someone has brought them for you. How do you know when to call? Easy, through the announcements. The announcements are made 3 times every school day. In the morning, right after the bell. Mid-morning, around 10 o'clock. And finally, just before the bell rings for dismissal in the afternoon. The announcements are an important way to find out what's going on at Longfellow. Announcements are made for all extracurricular activities like the Longfellow dances, fundraisers, and sporting events. In fact, if it's happening at Longfellow, there'll be an announcement about it. It's also through announcements that youths are called to report to either the main office or the guidance office. You might be called to see a counselor, get a message from your parents, pick up a lost item, or pick up your forgotten homework. The main office isn't the only office that sees a lot of activity. Welcome to the guidance office. This major office area houses the offices of our 3 guidance counselors, as well as individual rooms for student work and conferencing. All guidance office activity begins here, at the desk of the administrative assistant. She oversees enrolling and withdrawing of all Longfellow students. Appointments with your guidance counselor will be made through her. If you need to stop in and make an appointment, be sure to have permission from your teacher. You know, Liz, as long as we're talking about permission, it might be a good time to mention the agenda. A very good idea. Every student will receive one of these, an agenda. This book is not only the place where you keep your homework reminded, but also acts as a communication system between the teachers and parents. Teachers may often write notes on their agenda, so it's important to take it with you every night. The agenda is also your path. In the back are several pages which are used to record your comings and goings within the school. Every student must have their agenda signed by a teacher or other school adult before leaving a room or area. So before you go to make that appointment with your guidance counselor, be sure to have permission and your agenda signed. Well, here they are. Not much you can say about them, right? Well, yes and no. We're all used to lockers here, but they may not be so ordinary for you. Middle and high school students are all assigned lockers to keep their personal belongings in. Each locker is also assigned a lock. Only you and your teacher know the combination. It is always a good idea not to share your locker combination. And it's also always a good idea to make sure your lock is securely closed when you're finished using. It's just common sense to keep your belongings safe. And using common sense is always a good idea. But you say, I'm afraid I'll forget my locker combination, and I'm afraid I won't be able to get to my locker when I need to. I won't have my stuff and I'll be late for class. Wouldn't it be better, you just say to yourself, to just leave it unlocked? No, that's not common sense talking to you. That's fear. Right, you have 4 minutes to get to your locker, open it, get what you need, and get on to your next class. I know what you're thinking. That 4 minutes doesn't sound like a lot of time. Try holding your breath for 4 minutes. Try waiting for your mom to choose between one white t-shirt and the other white t-shirt for 4 minutes. Try listening to your sister talk on the phone to her boyfriend for 4 minutes. Believe me, 4 minutes can seem like an eternity. Anyway, 4 minutes is plenty of time for a visit to your locker. But sometimes, lockers do not cooperate. What then? Find the nearest teacher and give that person your locker combination. We told you to keep it a secret, but we have found that Longfellow staff members are trustworthy and honest. So unless your mom or dad is a caterer or packs you a really terrific lunch, there probably isn't anything in your locker that a Longfellow staff member would want anyway. And usually, that person who helps you is able to go along with the flight or write you pass so you can get to your next class without any trouble. And if you really can't get your locker open, they'll call the custodian, and he'll come with this awesome locker that looks like the shark's mouth and jaws, and he'll snap the lock off like it was a toothpick. Stop. Yes, that can happen, but no need to worry. A new locker will be issued, and you'll be in the locker room once again. Lockers. They are everywhere. Here at Longfellow, you get not 1, but 2 lockers. your personal belongings. Welcome to the girls' locker room, where during your Friday class you will have another locker available for your things. There are 2 locker rooms off the main gym here at Longfellow. There is one for the boys, and we are obviously in the girls' locker room. Both are pretty similar. Each has showers, benches, and lockers. During your Friday class, your locker will be used for the clothes you wear to school that day, your books, other personal items, and possibly your shoes if you're not wearing athletic shoes. Why would I have to put my regular clothes in here? That's because you'll need to be wearing your gym clothes, shorts and a t-shirt, athletic shoes, and a sweatshirt if it's cold outside. When it's time for you to begin your swim unit, you'll need your suit, towel, swim goggles. Anyone with long hair might want to have a ponytail holder that keeps the hair from floating around in the water. Wow, I wondered why we had another locker assigned to us. We never had one in elementary. That's because you weren't required to dress in anything special for gym. And there weren't swim classes in elementary school. Your Phi locker is also where you keep all the things you need for Phi class when you're not in Phi class. I get the need for a swimsuit and the right kind of shoes, but why bother with a change of clothes at other times? It has to do with comfort, safety, and hygiene. You can't play softball or run laps very easily in a skirt or tight pants. It's not safe for boys or girls to participate in athletics if the clothing is too long or too tight. Also, we all have to face it. We're all maturing, and that means activity will be producing a stronger body odor. Do you really want to spend the rest of the day in the clothes that are holding all your sweat from gym class? Yes, no, and I certainly don't want to stick clothes anyone else would. Exactly. That's why deodorant is also a good thing to keep in your locker. And think of it this way. When you practice or play on a sports team, you don't use your street clothes. Use other clothes and save your regular clothes for non-athletic wearing. Well, your PE class is your Longfellow team. Lockers. Welcome to the cafeteria. Technically, we're just outside the doors to the hot food lunch line, but we wanted to begin at the beginning. You'll have several choices to make regarding your lunch, and we'd like to cover them all. In addition to bringing your own lunch from home, you have a daily choice of 2 entrees that will complete a full hot lunch. Or you can pick and choose among options of different lunch items, drinks, and even desserts. But it all begins through these doors. Students form lines outside these doors and make their way through the line, choosing lunch options, and again, cash registers. You pay with either cash or using your student account. You then proceed to your lunch table inside the cafeteria. You navigate with students who brought their own lunch or have chosen to buy lunch at one of the hot food areas. Here. Or here. We do have a lot of choices, even about lunch, don't we? Absolutely, even to where and with whom you spend your lunchtime. Students may choose with whom they will sit. But once you choose, that table remains yours for the semester. And with your table comes the responsibility of cleaning up after yourself. All students are required to keep their area garbage-free. It's not that hard. If everyone cleans up their own personal garbage, the table and the floor should stay reasonably clean. And once you're finished eating and your table is clean, you can outside for the remainder of lunch. It is important for all of us to have a break in the day and get some fresh air. So unless you have a really good reason for staying inside, and a pass to do so, plan on spending some of your lunchtime recharging outside. Welcome to the stage! We're here on the stage of Longfellow's auditorium to tell you about extracurricular opportunities that Longfellow offers to all of its students. 6th graders included. Sports opportunities are available to both boys and girls throughout the entire school year. Whether you're passionate indoor or outdoor sports, or both, Longfellow provides opportunities for you to participate. Who's that? As a member of the dedicated coaching staff that will support your desire to be a part of football, soccer, basketball, or volleyball, cross country, track, tennis, wrestling, or even weight training. But what about me? I hear a number of you ask. I'm not interested in athletics. Not to worry, Longfellow offers just as many, if not more, activities to satisfy all of its students. For those of you who tonight to take the craft fence, we have art club and book club. ACAL board or student council for the politicians among you. Writers can find their voice through the Longfellow Journal. If service projects interest you, join Builders Club. Do you find your voice on or backstage in public speaking or musical performances? If so, you can make the theater productions, forensics, pet band, or jazz band when you're a student. Longfellow offers students opportunities through cheerleading, games club, and student announcers. There's a club, organization, or activity for everyone. Listen to the announcements advertising the start of a meeting, trials, or auditions to the activities that interest you. In addition to these specific activities, there are also two main social events that all of our students are eager to attend: the Longfellow dances and ACAL. Student council hosts 2 dances every year, provided you return the permission slip and the dance fee. $5 if you get it in by the first deadline. ACAL Chauffeur Activities Club at Longfellow. ACAL takes place twice almost every month and always on a Friday night. Each ACAL revolves around a theme, and the activities of the night are all related to the theme of the evening. In addition to the special activities, there are the regular activities at ACAL, including basketball, swimming, and ping pong. 6th graders have their own night for ACAL, and the 7th and 8th graders have the second night. But both nights feature the same themed activities. ACAL is only made possible because parents are generous in giving their volunteer time. So, if you want to have a successful year in 6th grade ACAL, be sure to ask your parents to help out a couple times during the school year. ACAL is the only activity that needs parent help. Teachers, coaches, and advisors can't do it all. So if you decide on the activities that you'd like to pursue, how about the advisors, your fellow activity members, and yourself by encouraging your parents to volunteer some time when the requests come. And everyone will have a terrific time! Recognize where we are? Yes, it's the room where we started. This is Longfellow's library. Another aspect of your middle school life that will be different from elementary is your use and access to the library. Well, it's your library until I got Longfellow's library when you come for orientation with your 6th grade commerce class at the beginning of the new school year. But we will tell you that how and when you use the library at Longfellow will help make a transition to using the high school library, which is 3 short years, a very familiar experience. We hope our tour of Longfellow has been interesting and helpful. And that our tips for what 6th graders need to know, based on our own experiences as newbies to Longfellow, have answered some of your questions, put to rest some of your fears, or just gave you a better understanding of what life at Longfellow will be like. Thanks for joining us. See you in the halls!
Did anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to know? I'm not really sure where to start with something like this.
We just saw the credits that you were listed as having done the script, but it sounded like the kids came up with some of the ideas. Can you just explain how that worked?
No, pretty much. All of these kids have been under my direction in either forensics or the show, and so they're used to me as a director. So I wrote the script, gave it to, first got permission from the parents of the kids involved. All the kids wanted to be a part of it. So based upon the information that Mr. Galen and the guidance counselors gave me, I came up with a script that covered all of the topics without making it sound like another class. I wanted it to be fun and something that the kids would remember. Since all of these kids are real used to scripts, I just gave them each their script, gave them a deadline by which they needed to know it. We did a couple of blocking rehearsals. Then Mr. Patton came in, we ran through it once without the camera, and then we shot it. So that was pretty much it. I just ran it like I do the play. It's really, and as I said, all of these kids are real familiar with my directing style, so it was pretty easy. They're really talented. It's a pleasure. I work with so many, really, the artistic level of the talent in the theater program in forensics is just amazing. And Mr. Galen left it totally up to me as to who I wanted to work with. So these are 7th graders now. They were our 6th graders last year. So based upon the experience I had with the kids in forensics and the shows, I picked this group, and then, because I knew that this particular group would deliver. They would be off book when they needed to be off book. They all take direction really well. And I was really happy with the results. I thought it turned out really well.
Hopefully a long tradition of volumes of these.
Every couple of years.
So we thought you would enjoy that. We're very proud of it.
Yeah,
It really made our orientation night go very well. So.
Thank you for letting us present.
Any questions or comments? Okay, thank you. I was
Thank you.
actually at the orientation. And
Oh, were you?
it went over very well.
Thank you.
We appreciate you bringing it in. Thank you. That brings us to the end of our presentations, and we move on to our action items. Okay? Yes, you do. Ready for this game.
First action item tonight is recommended that the board approve the revision to policy 9550, charter school status, as was presented and reviewed at the February 8, 2010 board meeting. The revision would add paragraph B, which would read, review and consider the current version of the principles and standards for quality charter school authorizing of the National Association of Charter School Authorizers to the extent that the principles and standards are consistent with Wisconsin law.
Is there a second?
Second.
Or is there any board discussion? Seeing none, is there any community comments on this action item? Mrs. Vellante, would you call the roll?
Mr. Crowder?
Yes.
Mrs. Neufeld?
Yes.
Mrs. Randall?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Mrs. Steve?
Yes. That brings us to reports to the board. And Dr. Erdl, I believe you'll begin with the discussion of the Wauwatosa School of the Trades proposed contract revisions. And Mr. Zerwick, I'm not sure.
Go ahead, Judy.
Who's going to start?
I appreciate you putting me last so I don't have to go in front of the students and put everyone to sleep with our charter school contract revisions. Tonight I'll be just walking through several of the recommended changes for our contract between the Wauwatosa School District and Wauwatosa School of Trades. And the recommendations came from the Department of Public Instruction. There was three common themes throughout our feedback from Department of Public Instruction, talking about defining Wauwatosa School of Trades as a school versus a program, looking at the autonomy of our governance board, and looking at the autonomy for Wauwatosa School of Trades as an instrumentality of the Wauwatosa School District. And throughout the conversation tonight, I'll try to reference what page number and what category I am referring to. So starting off and looking at our revised contract or the red line contract, if we look at pages 2 and 3, this falls under number 3 of the obligations. Looking at adding more specific benchmarks for Wauwatosa School of Trades in our implementation application. Several areas in there that we added to the contract. Basically, we just took pieces out of our implementation application and added that specific language into our contract, such as intensive trade-specific training, graduation requirements, credit designed to infuse, curriculum designed to infuse intense trade-specific training that draws upon national and local standards for apprenticeship training. Looking at page 4 of our contract under number 5, we added more specific information, again, information that was in our implementation application. We added this to our contract, referring to how are we going to be assessing our students. We referred to our math testing, and we will be doing the AccuPlacer annually. The math testing we do in the fall and the spring. Talked about how we are going to implement portfolios as a way of measuring students' academic progress throughout their 2 years in the trade school, as well as how we are going to be looking and designing formative assessment as well as summative assessment. Continuing on page 4, carrying on to page 5, looking on number 6, spelling out some of the specific governance board responsibilities a little bit more in depth, talking about some professional development for our governance board, as well as implementing proper procedures in compliance with open meetings and public record requests. Looking at page 6 and 7, under 7, staff development, looking at intensive training and project-based learning, talking about 21st century skills and how we are going to infuse that into our curriculum, talking about training and professional development and trade-specific instruction to help our teachers with their curricular approaches. Pages 9 and 10 of our contract, page 9 of our contract, under number 10, we cleaned up some language in terms of the enrollment in the lottery process. Turning to page 10, under number 14, we added specific language working with human resources and our business office in terms of liability insurance for our governance board. And then lastly, the piece we changed in our contract, looking at page 12, under our 5-year fiscal plan, we shifted in year 1 funds from our curricular development to purchasing of services, and some of those services would be fees for our grant writer, as well as outside staff development, professional development that would be coming in, as well as legal representation and counsel for our contract. Looking in the last 2 columns, year 4 and 5, which fall under our dissemination grants, the $125,000 for the dissemination grant cannot be used for operating expenditures, so we subtracted that out, and that shows up there. So those are the major changes that we are recommending off of feedback from DPI.
Have the review of the calendar before the questions?
Well, I think the moves are related to the DPI's. I don't want to call it a moving target, but I guess in some ways it is, as the Department of Public Instruction continues to try to align itself with federal regulations and guidelines, and then ultimately that comes down to us. This is a change that some of these changes are required prior to us receiving our implementation funds from the DPI. So it's a back and forth, and this is something that I assume will continue to monitor on a year-to-year basis as the whole charter school movement evolves and changes in Wisconsin and throughout the nation.
And every year it is changing. I'm going to the conference about 2 weeks ago as far as people who are applying for planning grants or first-year implementation grants. It's different from when we applied just 18 months ago and started through the process of getting the grant funds and the implementation funds. And I know we're at a stage where we're quite a bit different from the charter school for science, technology, and health, and things just keep on changing. And it's interesting. I think one of the things that's coming down from the federal government to DPI is making sure that the schools are schools and not programs, making sure that they're autonomous. The governance board has an active role in creating procedures and policies, and making sure that, again, it's a school, not a program. And I think those are things that consistently are coming up, as well as being innovative with the charter school. So those are the 3 main things that come up through my 2 years of working in the charter school.
Board members, questions, comments? Mr. Ray?
The general question first. Dr. Ertl, do you anticipate that the DPI is going to want to do or take a look at the contract for the health science school as well? And do you recommend changes with that contract, or is it more focused toward the trade school?
I think it's the trade school. I think it's anyone's prior to them distributing any of their funds. But I think once the contract is in place, they haven't, at least past history, they haven't gone in and required changes in contracts.
And that funding mechanism has already been triggered for the health science school.
Correct.
Then, to any one of you, on page 3, there's a reference to some additional insurance. I think specifically for the officers of the governing board. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what's the vision behind? Is that something that
budgeted from the district's perspective? Is that something that comes from a separate budget that the officers and directors of the charter school would have? And if it comes from the district, is it part of the coming out of the charter school budget that we see on page 12? How does that work?
Our stance is that our insurance company through the district does cover that, and we're continuing to work through that. But if there's money that's required, we believe it's roughly in the neighborhood of $1,000. If we had to go outside of it, it would come from the charter school funds.
Anyone else? Mr. Carney?
A few questions. On page 2, where you're talking about this chart is very different than elementary because we're actually giving a graduation diploma at the end. And so I was curious as to how that is going to work. I think a diploma is appropriate, but my question is, how do you correlate credits from our high schools versus what a credit is in this charter school? For example, students got grades. How much work does it take off campus to get a credit, and what is a course? What is required to have a credit for a course in the charter school? How do you determine that?
Right now, we're moving in a direction where we're not looking at seat time, we're not looking at hours, we're looking at student competencies under standards and benchmarks. As we have entered into our first year, I think we are still falling under that traditional mindset where it's the number of hours in a seat, which equates to the half a credit per semester. We still have 7 periods in a day, which we're in the planning stages and changing that for next year. So the credits that they need for graduation under the Wauwatosa School District guidelines for our class of 2011, those credit requirements are the same. As we move forward and looking at the class of 2012, we're looking at changing, actually the total credits are the same, but as far as, for example, math credits, right now you only need 2 math credits to graduate. We are going to be requiring a student to receive 3 math credits from the Tulsa School of Trades, as well as science. You need the 2 at East or West, but we're going to require 3 credits. Looking at trade-specific credits, we're going to be requiring 5, and you look at the student needs 9 elective credits. Well, 5 of those 9 are going to be taken up with trade school credits. So we're looking right now this year as a combination of seat time as well as standard-based accomplishments for the students. But as we move forward, we would like to get away from the seat time and look at mastery of concepts that are deemed where we need to be from our curriculum development team.
It seems like the right approach. But I'm wondering, when these kids say they apply to college or something, or maybe they don't continue in the trades, and the college is looking at a transcript saying, oh, they got 3 credits in a trade class. You'll have the right documentation?
Yes, we will.
With that?
It'll be labeled accurately on the transcript. It'll be an English credit on the transcript. It'll be a math credit, science credit, social studies. The students did take their financial literacy class. They're actually taking 2 financial literacy classes. The district requires 1 semester. So all that will be transcribed on the credits. Right now, they will be partaking back at their home-based school for commencement, East or West, depending on what the home-based school is. I'd like to evolve it into so it's a Tulsa School of Trades graduation ceremony, because it is a very intimate and close group of students. They are together all day. They're not going from class to class. So eventually, I'd like to look at down the road with guidance from the governance board on how we can change that. But right now in the contract, it's still that they'll be partaking back at East or West for the commencement ceremony, if they choose to.
And I think my major concern about some of the changes, and this is probably in the original too, was the organization of the governance board. And as I was on page 4, I think, where you were listing the members of the governance board, you have a president-elect and vice president that are trades members, and then 2 parents and 2 business or community members, I think. And then down below, you have the executive committee that owns the parents. So is that an evolving concept, or are there specific slots for community or business representatives? How's that work?
Initially, with the design of the governance board and the officer positions, this was something that the governance board or the steering committee talked at length about, is how are we going to arrange the positions, the officer positions or the directors, however you want to word it, and looking at the invested time that our trade experts have put into the school, as well as our trade community members. I think that they wanted to have it in a sense so that the mission of the school is still continuing to be that trade-specific instruction. So that way we're not losing sight in what some of the principles of our school is. I see that changing possibly down the road. I look at our governance board president. He is wearing two hats. He is a parent as well as a community member that works in the trades. And I think a lot of people wear those dual roles. We are going to be most likely, we have one parent coming in of a current student that we are going to be adding next month to the governance board, as well as looking at adding another current parent of a student to the governance board. So I think as the school evolves, there will be more buy-in or involvement from current student parents, whereas in the beginning stages it was more of community members that have students within our Wauwatosa School District. Because right now there aren't any students or parents of students in the Tosa School of Trades on the governance board. And that will change next month. We'll have one, and hopefully we'll have two soon. So
There are 4 people who said parents in the contract. Are they not?
they're parents.
and students?
Oh yes, but they aren't students at the Tosa School of Trades. They are parents of students in the Wauwatosa School District, of East and West High School students.
Okay, I assume that meant parents of students in the school. Okay. And above it says 2 business or community representatives. Is that something?
We still have community representation on our governance board. We have some non-parents and non-trade union businessmen that are part of our governance board.
So how many people are on the board now?
Right now it's 7.
Okay, that's what you're describing is different than what's described in the contract. So maybe we can.
It's not different. There's members that are wearing dual roles or dual hats.
Okay. And I have to say I'm a little bit concerned about only having tradespeople being executive positions. So does that mean if a parent is a tradesperson, they can have an executive position?
We have that right now.
But if a parent is not a tradesperson, they cannot.
Right now in our contract, that's how it's stated. That was feedback from the governance board in a long discussion.
Okay. The other thing I think that concerns me the most is on the next page, you have the binding decision of the board requires a 2/3 majority vote. And I guess that concerns me because you're going beyond simple majority vote to get something done. What is going to be very difficult is, according, if I understand it right, Wisconsin open meeting statutes, any 3 people that meet and discuss an issue would be in violation of those statutes because it only takes 3 people to block passage of a vote that requires 2/3 majority. So, and I can see if you have this kind of a school with 3 executive people in the trades, and they may want to talk on the phone about an issue, but they can't.
Correct, and that's in our bylaws. That's in our bylaws that if they cannot talk about issues outside of our governance board meetings. Now, we have subcommittees that work outside of our governance board that work and come back and report. That's in our bylaws.
Okay. I think those are my questions.
Thank you.
Only the discipline procedures and the student handbooks, it's specific to the charter school then. I know that the high schools and the secondary schools have student handbooks and agendas with all those policies outlined. Does the trade school have the same?
Yes, we have that, and it's actually a mirror image of the East and West handbooks. With small language that's specific to our procedures as far as calling attendance concerns. It's specific to our school, but we still fall under the discipline procedures as what's in our board policy, or the school board policy.
Anything, Mrs. Reed?
Just congratulations to you. I understand from the correspondence from DPI that this grant will be awarded based on these slight revisions that we're getting tonight, and I know how much everyone involved has been working on staying on top of this and determining what changes might be needed as you move forward. It continues to be very exciting, and I know it continues to be very motivating to the students. So when you get through all the red tape and the red lines and the blueprint, you're doing a wonderful job and a great service to our students in our district. So congratulations again.
Mr. Ray?
Also, I just wanted to share some positive feedback with you. I won't use any names, but I had a parent that came up to me in the relatively recent past and was just very pleased with what was happening for their student at the trade school. Somewhat jokingly, but also I think very appreciatively, they have received their report card and were very pleased with what they saw on it. Almost kind of did double take, it sounded like, when they looked at the report card. But more importantly than that, they were excited about how their student was so much more engaged in what was happening on a day-to-day basis than what they had been experiencing prior to that. It was the right situation for their student, and they were very just thankful that the opportunity was there.
Thank you.
Anything further? Then we'll have this back on our agenda at the next meeting for action. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brings us to a second opportunity for public comment on non-agenda items. If anyone would like to make a comment, please approach the microphone at this time. Seeing none, I motion to adjourn this morning. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering if Kyle received an additional recognition from Senator Sullivan's office that came tonight. She wasn't able to stay to present it. I wonder, could they come up and share that with us?
I'm not going to say it's a fancy schmancy piece of paper, real signature of the state of Wisconsin Senate seal on it, and it just said, do you want me to read the whole thing, or what would you like me to do? You just want to show and tell, or what?
Reads, State of Wisconsin citation by the Senate. Know you by these presents. Whereas Kyle Mansky, an esteemed resident of Wauwatosa and a student at Wauwatosa East High School, has achieved national recognition for exemplary volunteer service by receiving a 2010 Prudential Spirit of Community Award. And whereas this prestigious award, presented by Prudential Financial in partnership with the National Association of Secondary School Principals, honors young volunteers across America who have demonstrated an extraordinary commitment to serving their communities. And whereas Kyle Mansky earned this award by generously donating his time and energy to collecting more than 7,000 new and gently used children's books for the Children's Hospital of Wisconsin. And whereas Kyle Mansky set up collection boxes at 3 Milwaukee area churches, spoke during 5 church services to ask for book donations, and recruited more than 50 volunteers to distribute donation bags to over 800 homes in the area. And whereas Kyle Mansky emptied his collection boxes twice a week, supervised sorting and boxing the books, and delivered 7,000 books to the hospital, 6,000 books more than his goal. Now, therefore, the members of the Wisconsin Senate, on the motion of Senator Jim Sullivan, do commend Kyle Mansky as a recipient of the 2010 Prudential Spirit of Community Award and extend him sincerest best wishes for the future. And it's signed by Jim Sullivan, State Senator, Fred Risser, President of the Senate, and Robert Marchant, Chief Clerk of the Senate, dated February 22nd, 2010. So congratulations.
Hopefully it wasn't too fast. No, it wasn't. It was good. Thank you.
And with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
We stand